Hello,
Hello.
Nathaniel. You're my guest today on my podcast. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Nathaniel Praino
Great.
of Nathaniel's the Café in east of Adelaide on
Nathaniel's
Panini
Coffee and
Road.
Panini.
Sorry, everyone. Nathaniel's Coffee and Panini. And we're on the eve of your third birthday.
That's right. Tomorrow's the 4th. Started on the Saturday, the 4th in 2020.
And this is the first cafe that you've opened.
Yep.
And your background is in hospitality.
Yeah, pretty much. It shouldn't have been, but it became that way. Dad wanted me to have a trade and do carpentry, and I worked in a cafe and loved it, so stuck with it for 18 years.
And how was your dad with that?
Oh, he's happy now.
Yeah, he has to be happy now. We've got pretty good success here.
Yeah, it took him a few years to understand that I could make a good living out of hospitality. And yeah, now I've got my own place. He's proud as punch.
So he was worried in the beginning about whether you can
He thought it was
financially...
an in-between job.
Yeah, okay. By the way, thank you for supplying coffee today.
Hey, I've got
Appreciate it.
Portuguese tarts too, no worries.
I wanted to ask you because your sister was on MasterChef in 2017, and because we had a quick chat before we went live today, and you said that you were pretty much seeing your sister through that journey. And what I wanted to ask you was, were you inspired by that? Did you already have your ideas around food before she was going through that process?
Definitely had my ideas around what I wanted to do for my ideal cafe. She had some pretty cool ideas which I thought would be useful or would be that would work out in a cafe long term. Even she had some ideas that she wanted to do and incorporate with me as well. That transformed into something else, which is great because she supplies me with most of my staple cakes now. There's always a potential for the future for something different if she wants it.
I just kind of wondered, while you're watching her going through that competition, did that sort of make you sort of more driven to do your own thing?
Not at the time. I was probably still pretty anxious to do anything else. It was a crossroads for me, really. Personal life as well as with my career. Aside from that, it was really awesome to see where she was going and how she could change her career or put her career on hold while doing something completely different, and that not many people get to a chance to do. So that was really awesome to see that. And then where she got to, top 8, got to go to Japan and finish off proud as anything. I was just inspired by that, and her journey through all of MasterChef and her love to come back home but continue cooking. That was sort of like, okay, she can do that. I can be comfortable and do it at home and plan for it and take my time. And I did start planning around then, but it took a few years before I got the final thing through. So
what drove you to want to open your own cafe?
Oh, there's a bunch of different things, but the real push was when our wife Lydia, she said if you don't do it, things probably won't work out. She pretty much said that I got to do it because she knows that I could do it well. She could see I make good coffee and I'm really good in the cafe. I've got the skill. I had the skill to do it. I just didn't. I was a bit lazy, and I needed that push to get it going. And every week I had a new goal ticked off, and she just was the real push for me.
That's really cool, because when we chatted, you pretty much said that if it wasn't for your wife, you wouldn't have opened the cafe, which I thought was huge.
Yeah,
relationship goals, everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Listening.
Bloody oath. I know I wanted to do it, but I probably would have taken my time, and it would have been 10 years later I would have opened something up and it would have been completely different. And although this is not ideally what I had chosen to do or wanted to do 8 years ago, it's turned out to be really good. And
Okay, so pause there. What were you wanting to do 8 years ago?
probably more cooked meals, a cafe with a kitchen, and a bit more, table service.
Okay.
But probably wasn't going to be worth it in the beginning for me here. I really wanted more of a lot of things, but set up quite small and started minimal costs and expenses as for what I could afford to do. And I thought, if it works, I'll keep going and then build it up from there.
That leads me to my question of, like, when you think of the original concept for this cafe, like the seed, was it about a good cup of coffee? Was it about the panini? Was it about a feeling that you wanted people to have when they come in?
Coffee is number one. Being completely engrossed with coffee and sucked into the whole world of the good espresso, that's been my key focus for majority of the business. And then accompanied by a really good panino, which in my life and my growing up is very important, whether it's just your staple lunch on a Saturday afternoon with mortadella and provolone, or something a little bit more with your giardiniere and your fillings and your prosciutti. I just wanted everyone to really experience something that I've experienced over my lifetime, even though some people would have had it, because I get a lot of Italians that come in here. But then...
That's so unexpected.
Just,
Is there any connection to your childhood with, like, eating a good panini, basically? Panino?
Dad always said company come from the word con panis, which is Latin for with bread. And so you always have, when your Italian family has people over, they always share food, and whether it's coffee and food, even if it's as simple as a biscuit, we'd always share food with friends and family and extended friends. It doesn't matter if you're related or not. You share your food with your friends, and that's essentially what my business is all about, sharing my coffee and my food with my friends and my extended family. So even
you get a real sense of that when you come into your shop.
And that's what I want. I want that community. I want that, sense of familiarity when you come in, even if you've never been in before.
Yeah. And I don't know if I've ever really experienced that. I mean, you see, you make friends with a barista at another cafe or whatever, you say hello, but this was something different that I noticed in your shop, and that was when I thought I really want to chat to you about, I wanted to get you on my show because the community part is what I wanted to talk to you about. But you did say to me that the way that it unfolded, it was unexpected. And why do you think it was unexpected?
I can't put it onto one thing. I just naturally want to help and please everyone, but I want to have a good conversation with everybody. One thing I loved about my job is I could always have a chat with someone, even while working. So for me, it was people were stopping by through all of 2020 and 21. People were working from home, so they were getting out for a bit of fresh air, taking their families out, taking their dogs out, and they'd come past for a coffee, and I would introduce myself, but also have a chat with them. And I wasn't about just wanting them to buy a panino or a coffee, because I'm in the business to make money, but I'm also here to have a good time and have a chat, because my work is all about enjoying it, and I love my job.
That's so awesome.
And everywhere I've been, I've always loved my job.
That's really good, because if you don't like people, you probably shouldn't be in hospitality. Am I right?
No way.
And also, you have to be good at multitasking, because when I'm focused on a task, last thing I want or like is people chatting to me, because then I just can't. I have to commit to that person.
Totally.
So
It's hard sometimes when you want to cut them off because you've got to serve the next customer, but
it's a good problem to have.
yeah, that's for sure.
So going back to what drove you to open the cafe, you did say to me that you had better ways of doing things when you were working for other people. You obviously had like conversations in your mind of how you would do it better. Do you want to expand on that?
Everywhere I had previously worked, bar one place, anytime there was an idea brought to the managers or the bosses, they had to get approval from someone else, and things were too complicated and too hard to change. And so if I had a way of doing something, they said, nah, just stick to how it is. Even if your idea is better, just stick to what we're doing because it's too hard to change. And that bothered me because I could make life so much easier by changing the way. But no, we had to stick to that original way.
That would be so frustrating.
Yeah, and even if it's the smallest thing, it's just those little things that bothered me and also drove me to having my own place. There were a couple of like food ideas and drink ideas that I had thought of over the years and had tried them out, and a couple of people loved them, and a couple of people like managers have said we can't do it because it's not something that you come up with. It's not your job to create. It's just your job to make. And
I think it just died a little bit in my heart.
Yeah, well.
Not your job to create.
Yeah, so I thought, what's the point? So I had to bite my tongue a few times. And then a few times it was, open to come up with all these great ideas, but then sell them for someone else. And I thought, well, I don't want to do that forever because otherwise I'm going to have nothing for myself. So sometimes I just kept things to myself.
With all the reading I've been doing about, running a business, and trying to be a good leader as a business owner, I think one of the quickest ways to get rid of your staff is to not allow them to flourish in their role and just, be open to, if they do have a better way of doing something, then just fucking let them do it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We've got this cool, it's not incentive, it's more of a competition. Every week, one staff brings out their own food item, and they've got ample time to think of what they want to do each week. But we did this competition last year with all the staff, and whoever sold the most panini or just had the best idea that customers really loved, that ended up being on the menu. And last year, Stefan came up with a panino that was just sounded delicious, which tasted delicious, and it's been on the menu for over a year, and we've kept it. And now we've got the competition going on again, and all these ideas are really that are coming in are really awesome. So
I love that because it's a form of creativity, and that's running thing for my show. So I love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's cool. So there's definitely a sense of family through this business, and it carries on through with the way that you run this business. You were telling me about your mum and how from day one
she's made over 30,000 panini. Yeah, so mum's been working here every day that we've been open, bar 3 weeks that she went over to Europe with last month. She's been working every day since I've opened, and this is her job out of love, and then she goes to her job in the city after that.
That's amazing.
She's been just hit 10 years working judicial registrar, the family courts, and so she does that, and she probably does 60 hours there a week, including reading at home and going into the courts. So she's a hard worker. All my family are hard workers, but mum wakes up, she hates mornings. She wakes up at 6 o'clock, comes here at 6:30, makes panini, then goes to work at 8 o'clock, gets there, does her day, finishes maybe 5, reads for an hour or so, and then goes home. We've come from a long line of hard workers, and she's not afraid of it. You know, days where she doesn't want to do it, but she still comes in because she's, you know, committed.
She's got that discipline.
Yeah.
I think the older generation is a little bit different to the newer generation. Would you agree?
For sure. But, you know, not to say that we're not hard workers. I mean, Lydia...
Yeah, definitely.
My wife, Lydia, she did the first year and a half, same as Mum. They made the panini together. Then she would go off to work too. So I can't... It's not just Mum. Can't take all the credit.
So you've had a lot of good support?
Yeah, huge. Lydia still works every Saturdays with me. So she did every Saturday from the beginning. She stopped a little bit while baby was born, but she's still there now.
So you're pretty much freshly married.
Yeah, 4 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're pretty much, would you say you're a new dad?
Oh, yeah, you wish.
And so, you know, when you knew that a child was coming, were you planning to step back a little bit or?
For a week. That's all I could really get away for.
Do you have any tips for like new dads out there that are trying to grow a business?
Don't start a second one with a 1-year-old or even a 6-month-old. I'm lucky that Lydia can bring Graciela, our baby, into the shop every day. And on the days that she can't come in, I know that I'll be home before they get home. I'm able to go see them quite frequently and regularly. In the first 6 months, I got to spend a day with her myself. So Wednesdays would be my day to look after Graciela. And having your own business, you've got a bit more flexibility to spend time with your child. However, you may have those days or weeks when work is just so full on, you've got no time at all. So it's a bit of just got to work with that balance. I mean, if you've got a day off, then that's fantastic. If you don't get days off, just spend that extra little time as much as possible, where possible.
Are you happy with the timing of everything? Would you change anything?
No.
I think that's the best takeaway.
Had I known that a big pandemic was coming 6 months before I was opening, I'll probably maybe hesitate a little bit. We set up the shop I got the keys in first week of January 2020, and we started ripping the floors out and the old furniture and started laying everything down and making it as it is now. It took us 2.5 months to get it up, and I had friends who were doctors in emergency all over Adelaide saying, don't open, and friends who were working in the city who were getting sent home saying, don't open, and we decided to open anyway because the money was in the shop, you know?
Yeah.
If we didn't open, we'd be wasting it. And we signed the lease, or I signed the lease, just beginning of the year, and I didn't know what I was getting into.
Got a real theme of forging ahead in this talk so far, which is just awesome. And apparently 10 months after opening, your cafe won an award for best coffee. Yeah,
it was a cool little local or statewide competition. It was more of a, any reader could vote for us, and they voted us in for the best in the East. And I know that not everyone are in this thing because lots of cafes that I go to weren't in it, but it was a matter of people voted for me, and they voted for me as best in the East, and that was bloody awesome. I took it on. I thought I was really happy. I was impressed with it. I didn't think that was going to be something that'd be happening in the first year. And then it went to the state, and I think it was something like top 8 for the state.
It's really great.
It's
and
cool.
Then did you feel like, I'm on the right path here with that?
Yeah. I mean, I always thought I was on the right path, just getting a bit noticed sooner than later.
Both of us we both have an Italian background. just very quickly, I've started learning proper Italian through uni, and I'm finding that's bringing me closer to the culture. I wanted to know, since running the business, have you felt closer to the culture or?
No different. No, the only thing I've been closer to is my Napoli football team. Because I'm getting up early enough to watch the games. So, no, no different to the culture. Unfortunately, I probably see less of the Italian culture being closer to the city, where I was before. I was, in the hood of Little Italy in Campbelltown. So now I'm further away. I get less Italians are coming through, but yeah, I still get quite a few that are around.
Can you speak it fluently?
No.
Okay.
I can have basic conversation, and I'm not going to do it now.
Yeah. I that's why I started at uni, because I wanted to get a bit more confident. The cafe's clearly taken on a life of its own, and you opened up a second location.
Mm-hmm. Nathaniel's Portavia, which is in Dulwich on Green Hill Road. Some friends approached me. They were literally the business across the road from us here in that red building over there, from Pop-Up Healthcare. And they said, hey, we're relocating at the end of the year. We don't want to lose your coffee. Do you want to come with us? And I thought, wow, that's
really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was just the nicest little thing to hear. I couldn't say no. Well, I could have, but they've been very silly because they were offering so much, and I really wanted to give it a try. It's been open for, I think, 5 months now. We thought we'd give it our best shot. We set up behind the reception in their foyer, and it's open Monday to Friday, 6 to 12. The location is good. I need to bring a few more people in though. It's not working quite as I had hoped or expected.
That was my next question.
But being only 5 months in, and it's a hidden little place. Unless you know it's there, it's going to be really hard to find. There's still a few more things I want to do to really push that shop. But it's not all is lost. We're having better weeks as we go.
Is there more pressure and responsibility by having that second location?
Yeah, it's huge.
And is it been a good trade-off? Has it been, aside from having not as many people as you'd expected, is it still worth it for you?
At the moment, it's still watch and see. It's a lot of work because I'm not only thinking about what I need to supply there, it's also when I need to drop it off and how the food gets there, because I'm supplying most of the food from the shop here in St. Peter's. So I'm getting deliveries to the shop most mornings. And if we don't get a drop off early enough, then we don't sell any food at the other shop, and that's really pretty negative, pretty bad, pretty poor form on my behalf. There are days that people really want a lot of food there, and other days that they don't want anything at all. So that's also
it'd be hard to plan.
Yeah, so a bit of messing around, but something I still need to work on a little bit more. But maybe to get my name out there to a few more, maybe even residents.
Are you good at delegating, or do you pretty much want to hold on to everything?
Well, I can delegate, but I tend to do it all myself.
I think when your business is named after you, that also doesn't help matters.
Here is okay. I'm more concerned about letting this one go, and I spent 2 weeks setting up the other shop, and I felt like this one was struggling a bit, and I had staff that were here for 2 years plus, and it was still, I had quite a few issues, and I felt like teething issues even though it was like 2 years in. So I've been a bit hesitant to get away from here for too long. Although the other one closes at midday, I'm still just holding on a little bit too much to here.
Can we just also quickly talk about the team situation. We touched on a little bit before about having a competition with the Panini, but like, do your ideas kind of intensify, or do you have more of them when you're like, where do your ideas come from? Does it come from people?
I'm
from your team? Does it come from your team?
Not as much for food. I mean, when I'm talking with the staff, or when they're starting the shift, or if it's the beginning of the day or the middle of the day, we generally talk about what works best and what doesn't work, and they tell me when there's issues, and they'll say, hey, this might work better because of whatever reason, and I'll consider it and I'll try it out. But food ideas just come from it. And I know that some flavour combinations just work incredibly together. I just sort of try them out and, make them into a toasty. And if it tastes good, then great. And if not, then I'll try it in panino. And if not, then I'll just discard it. But generally, conversations with some of the staff will say, hey, this looks really good. Can we do a chicken cotoletta, for instance, in a panino? I was like, no, I can't do a chicken cotoletta. But
what part of Italy is your family from?
Dad's from Naples. Mum's from Campania family. Mum's family is from Campania region.
Okay.
But Dad's from the city in Naples. We love, all things... all pork products and, the schnitzel or the cotoletta. We love those as well. But, we don't have a kitchen, but we do a breakfast panino on a Saturday. Something as simple as sous vide eggs, which is so cool when you think about it. It's just eggs cooked in a water bath in a vacuum sealed bag. And there you are, scrambled eggs. We do pancetta with that and chili honey mushrooms and a chili cheese on a brioche.
Yeah, I'm pretty much sold on that. If I wasn't on a low-carb diet, I'd be all over it.
So the ideas are not hard to come by, and the, how do I say it? I don't have all the equipment to make a full kitchen breakfast or full cooked meal, but we can still make do with a few different things that we have. A lot of kids are telling me, I really want a meatball sandwich or meatball sauce panino, and Mum says to me this morning, hey Nathaniel, when I do my special panino, can I do a meatball sandwich? I was like, you know what, Mum, that's going to be a killer sandwich.
100%. So you do seem like someone that likes to at least try stuff out, because I do remember, I don't know if it was like a year or two ago, there was someone selling bread here.
Yeah, it's a friend of ours, Anthony. And he was working here for a while too. He was making his bread and then selling it here on a Saturday. It was an opportunity for him. I gave him the space to just sell it, but he worked here. He worked his ass off here on weekdays. I pushed him hard, and he was able to sell his product here. But that was cool because people got a different understanding of what we're about, not just making coffees day to day. He has a passion in sourdough, and he still does it at home, less selling it, but I think he's trying to perfect it some more.
I bought a loaf. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was delicious. His fruit loaf was the best.
I haven't tried that.
Well, he based it off a panettone recipe, and I missed that. I think I still have some in the freezer at home.
And he had a lovely personality. Obviously, you attract, you have just good-natured, kind people around you. Your staff are always super friendly and approachable.
Yeah, I've worked at so many places where you have a whole range of people in either behind the counter or in front, like customers. Generally, people who are rude don't hang around for very long. I welcome everybody equally, but you won't see rude people here. And if they're rude, they won't be rude for very long because they end up loving us so much. It's funny because we had an old lady that used to come in and roll her eyes, and now she's like one of our favourite customers.
Aww.
So I think we attract really friendly people and really friendly customers. And the customers, I think they all talk to each other because it's like a community. Like we said before, they all come in and they all sort of know each other, and they've all been, with us since the beginning. But the staff are much the same. They've been, half of them were customers once upon a time. One of my staff that just left, she was a customer in the beginning, and she stayed with me for 2.5 years. Some new staff that I've got were customers beforehand. So I really, I just want really friendly people who want to do, who want to be working and want to, do what I do. And it's hard to get people who really have that drive to be in hospitality, but when you got them, you just got to hold on to them.
Totally. And what I wanted to say about you is you've got one of these smiles that, like, you can tell that you love your job. You can tell that you love your business and, how you've built it up. And when I've come in a few times and, you give me your big smile, and even if you're fucking busy and you can't talk, there's so much in your smile. Honestly, it's like I've had a conversation with you just from your smile.
Or, you're coming into my shop and that's all that matters. Like, you don't have to be buying anything. You come in and say hello, that's cool.
And you really feel that when you're behind the counter doing your thing, you really feel that. So
thanks.
Paying you a compliment.
Thank you.
And my last question is so where you were 5 years ago, if you were chatting to someone that was in that position, what advice would you have? Say someone wants to start their own business, and what advice would you, but I guess let's be a bit more specific. They want to start their own cafe.
Well, me 5 years ago, I was literally in the middle of planning my cafe. The things that set me back were regulations, council regulations, and things that I had no idea about were what was allowed and what you could and couldn't do. It's hard to give advice on something on a broad subject because for me it's very specific towards hospitality. It's smaller. It was although a big space, there was not much involved. But I did mention the council. That was a headache to deal with them. They were slow to reply. They didn't give me very solid feedback. They didn't give me clear answers. They didn't give me clear questions that they wanted from me. It was very, that was the most difficult thing that I had to deal with. And yet Lydia helped me with a lot of that. And everything that she helped me with was, applying to applications and remembering what applications needed to be done. I know it sounds so vague, but still so complex.
Sounds like in those moments when when you want to start the business because you've got that passion, and then you're stuck in that, you're stuck dealing with the regulations. Sometimes you can lose your drive in those moments, and you don't have someone giving you that support.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much was involved, and even things from the bank. They only wanted to make sure you could pay the loan. They didn't care so much about you as a business would survive. They were too vague in what they required or what you're required to do. They weren't going to approve my loan for the business until everything was finalised. And I was with one particular bank that required so many different details, and although banks probably do today more so than ever before, things like the fees and the monthly taxes and quarterly BASs and health and safety, your work safety, insurance and superannuation.
I'm ready to retire just hearing you say all of that.
Yeah, well, there are things that you know of, but you don't know how frequent it comes up. You know, it's sort of like if I knew what was involved, I probably would have taken a little bit longer to start up.
Interesting.
Although I like things laid out on paper, I also like a bit of surprise element because, like I said, I didn't know about half those things that were involved, the applications and all the council regulations. But had I known these things from the beginning, I probably would have been hesitant to start. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Like, where do you go? I mean, do you start the business? Do you just like, maybe just hold off? I mean, it sounds ridiculous.
I'm a big fan of just jumping in and doing it and figuring it out as you go along.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've been close to people who don't believe in doing things that way and that couldn't think of anything worse. But if I know everything that's involved, I won't do it.
Yeah.
I won't do it. So, you know, let's be honest, the only reason why I asked you to be on my podcast was to get like a free Portuguese tart. So...
well, please have one if you want.
Let's show, I don't know if you can actually...
I'm sure you
can. Take a photo of it afterwards.
You're going to be able to see that
and put it in the show notes. These are awesome. And so many times I've come in here on my diet and, you know, I see the tart and the diet goes out the window.
Talking community, you know, I've asked my sister to supply me with a lot of cakes and family has been really important for me. And we went through so many different cakes that were going to work for the shop. She supplies me with a brownie, which is gluten-free, passion fruit slice, which is also gluten-free, a lemon slice, which is vegan, which is delicious and lemony. She does a cake or a tart every week. She does banana bread. She does the cookies, the peanut butter chocolate chip cookies, melting Monties, which now my mum makes because she has a lot of fun making them. But one of the first weeks, probably the first weekend that we were open, this couple came in with their 2 kids from down the road. They bought a latte and a long black and a couple of baby chinos. And I remember their order and they came down with a stroller and I think they tagged us in a post saying like, awesome new cafe in the area. Their name is Frank and Sylvie. And then next weekend they came in with a tray of Portuguese tarts and these things are hot. These things are piping hot. Lydia and I were working and there were 7 Portuguese tarts. I was like, they said, oh, hey, product that we sell, they've got a fruit and veg shop in Hollywood Plaza. I want you to try these out. We live down the road. They're very, they're freshly made. I was like, oh, okay, cool. No worries.
So they make the tarts?
They make the tarts. Yeah, not my sister. My sister loves them as much as I do.
They're literally perfect.
They are. I tried one and I looked at Lydia and I was like, you're going to try this. And she tried it and then we had another one and then we shared another one. And then I was like, I've got to have another one. And then we thought, oh shit, I better save one for mum. So we saved one for mum. And I said to the guys like Frank and Sylvie's like, you guys, this is incredible. I want them as soon as you can get them to me. So
that's great.
I walk down to their house every morning. It's literally the end of the street. I pick them up.
I see you sometimes. You actually walk there and okay.
I do my little tart time on Instagram. And these things are
I was like...
incredible.
We could just do 5 minutes of crunching while we eat it, but I won't do that. That's a great way to wrap this up. So thank you. Thanks again for being on the show.
That was my pleasure. Thanks for, asking me for this interview. I was a bit hesitant. I was a bit nervous at first. Shut up, Nathaniel.
You seemed really afraid when I asked you. But really it was that when I just saw what was happening with your customers coming in and the way that you smile and greet them, I thought definitely want to explore this with you. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.